Traveling over here and meetings and all, I just keep it brief and simple. It's gonna take a couple of minutes. So, quick introduction of our company. Pt1 Group is a port logistics and warehouse operator, which operates mainly in South America. We've got port terminals and storage facilities in Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. Our core business is aimed at bulk cargoes, and we are strongly doing investments in the region in order to develop the Paraná-Paraguay waterway, which is a system very similar to the one in Mississippi, with its differences, of course, but it's the same concept. So the company is Argentinian, privately held, and we look at becoming a 360 logistics hubs for any company interested in trading commodities in the region. So, given the business we're in, we've had the opportunity to engage in different conversations with several companies from different industries, and every time we present the region and the waterway and the commodities that might come in, we get the same things in the answers over and over again. That's the things I'm going to go over with in this presentation, but basically it's volume. What about volume? How do we got volumes and where are they? How do we make it cost effective? How can we reach the region? We know we're far away from the production centers and from sourcing centers. And even you're a trader or a producer, it's always about how do we get there being cost effective. How can we achieve a competitive advantage? It's not just about getting there cheaper, but it's how can we get there cheaper and do something else than the rest. And in line with the same advantages is how can we add value? It's not just about doing it cheaper and better, but how can we make it different and how can we make it more interesting for new clients and new importers? And to wrap it up, beyond theory is we're going to go into a small example of how this is already working and it's going on for commodities in the region, and it's not just a theoretical model. It's something that we're trying to develop and it's going on right now as I'm speaking. So, volume. The region we're aiming at, although Brazil is marked there, I'm going to make a slight note. It's Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil, and Bolivia. When we mention Brazil, we're talking about the midland south part of Brazil. Brazil has a different structure regarding its markets, so the oceanic coast will be left out of this analysis for the region. The three major industries consuming petcoke in the region are cement, power, and metal. Different grades, different quantities, different volumes, and depending on which country you look at, it's one major player or the other. But those are the three major players in the region, and there's another sort of industries working with petcoke in smaller volumes. They add up to the total amount, but they are there. So that region with those players in those industries, we're looking at roughly 2 million tons per year of coal consumption. That's taking into account what comes in from abroad, either Europe, Middle East, US, Brazil, plus what's consumed from local production. We'll look into it further on, but that's a 2 million ton market. And what we're trying to do is don't look at the region as separate countries, separate markets. Look at it as a single region worth 2 million tons of consumption. So, how can we make it cost effective? Those 2 million tons are spread in different countries. You requested different quality of sulfur, low sulfur, high sulfur. There's different importers, so you get in the supply chain producers, traders, importers, and then customers. You get different delivery locations, some at ports, some inland, some require transport by rails, transport by truck, transport by barges. You got different time frames. Not all of the industries consuming petcoke are available to store petcoke or to handle it in big volumes. So you need to look into the scheduling and the planning of what you deliver, when to deliver it, and where to deliver it. All of that ends up being a logistical nightmare, which requires widespread distribution with too many variables to address. So when you start breaking it back to those 2 million tons spread across the region in lots of different places, it's not worth the trouble. It's too many things to be considered, and the margins start getting smaller and smaller. So what we need to address is how to avoid costs that aren't necessarily an obligation to address the market. One step ahead, moving to competitive advantages and adding value. So when we look at widespread distribution, I'm not going to go over all of these, just the ones we consider are the key ones. But when we talk about addressing a market from far away, the first thing we try to say is take the region as one single market. And the second thing we want to say is try to get your product positioned within the region. So it's get an extension of your storage facilities, not your production, because that would be an investment way too big, but try to get an extension of your storage facilities within the region and start your logistics from there. It's worth it when you address the whole supply chain. So what will that mean? That will mean you get shorter procurement times for your clients. It will make it more attractive. It's taking down 40 days, 60 days, 80 days navigation down to tops 10 days in barges, 7 days in trucks, 4 days in trucks. So that makes it way more attractive. Financial impact for both the producers, traders, and the clients. The money invested in shipments that arrive 60 days later, 40 days later, can be invested in storage, in processing, in equipment. So you're going to help your clients get a better financial health that will make it more attractive to purchase from you. Full cargo ships. This is one of the key issues here, which means if you got the ships and you got the volume, you can get your full ship placed in the region. You don't need to start adding up little orders, 10,000 here, 15,000 there, 20,000 there. Just get a whole ship into the region and work with the widespread distribution from there. Regarding competitive advantages, those are some of the things you might be able to do and that we suggest you look into and assess to make it very competitive when trying to get to the region. And how can you add value? Add value by blending on-site. Don't start shipping or don't try to go shipping small orders with different qualities. It's going to make it even more complicated. So if you got your stock here in the region, not here, there in the region, and you blend on-site, you're able to deliver much faster custom-made orders for your clients with their specific needs, shortened times, with better financial health. That's all adding up to make it a more interesting business for the consumers of Petcoke. Off-site storage and floating storage are two key issues here. We found out that some of the industries consuming Petcoke either don't have the space to make storage or don't want to use the space they have for storage. They rather use it for what they produce, not for the Petcoke. So if you can allow companies which are currently doing floating storage on barges in the river, the possibility of having an off-site storage location a couple of days away, that will be great value that you can add to your clients' orders. And all this, you say, okay, this sounds great, it's all theoretical. It's not. I'm going to go into a small example. That's number one, transport matrix evolution in Paraguay. And then I'm going to jump into someone currently doing commodity trading in the region. What happened in Paraguay is the fertilizer market with the grain market had a completely different logistics supply chain that they have today. In a nutshell, Paraguay sent empty trucks all the way to the coast of Brazil to get fertilizers, to come back with those fertilizers, and the production of that fertilizers in grains went downriver in barges, which came back empty. So you had two transport systems doing single trips with cargo and doing back hauls and back trips empty. As in costs, that today that's something that most people won't consider. It's either I go with cargo or come back with cargo, or I'm not going at all. What happened was in 2013, the matrix was 90% of transportation was done by truck, and only 10% was done by barges through the river. There was a collapse in commodity prices. Things started to look a bit heavier when the costs came into play. So what started happening was, let's see how we can start getting the vessels coming in with fertilizer, going back with grain, barges going up river with fertilizers and coming back with grain. And if there was any trucks still being used to go to the coast of Santos, they go with cargo and they come back with cargo. That matrix shifted within 6 years completely around. So now it's 90% through the river and only 10% through trucks, and the trucks that are being used is because there's no way to get there, either in another means of transport. You got no railroads or no river. Having said that, and when we started with this model to address the region as one single market with the countries involved in the first slide, there's one company that decided to take the leap of faith and say, okay, we'll give it a try. We'll start out with a small quantity, 5,000 tons, and see what happens. They did it, and they started seeing that distribution within the region, although it meant having a warehouse in the place and started consolidating orders and loading full ships and unloading full ships, they started seeing it was worth it. So it kept evolving, and over the past couple of years, they started getting bigger market share, they started having better prices and better conditions for their clients, and these traders started going head-to-head with producers from all over the world. They started getting just-in-time distribution systems for their clients, so they started programming barges every week or every 2 weeks, or trucks to address the needs of their clients. And all of this was somehow